The Vango RVA2 awning has been bespokely created for the Swift Basecamp range of caravans. Almost doubling the usable space of the Basecamp 2, the awning is relatively quick to pitch, creating a visually pleasing and rigid structure. Its curved air beams complement the design of the caravan. The huge Basecamp orange vestibule with its clean lines provide privacy, weather protection for the entrance and a windbreak for the external barbecue. Inside, the light floods into the space via the huge rear window, reaching across the span of the awning, providing a comfortable and spacious living and storage space. The Vango RVA2 clearly looks stunning on the back of the Basecamp caravan, almost a match made in heaven. Retailing at £900, this is an expensive partner. Having now pitched the RVA2 in all 4 seasons, there are 2 questions raised. Is the RVA2 the true all-rounder go-to awning, and does it deliver on the price tag? Let's discuss in this vlog.
So, we've had this Basecamp caravan for 2 years now, and the Vango RVA2 awning I bought a year ago as a used. We were the second owners, and I bought it as a later edition. And over that time, I've used that awning all through the 4 seasons of the year. So I now understand the true practicality of that awning, where its strengths are and where its weaknesses are. The awning does come with some compromises, and I'll share my experiences thus far with this awning in this vlog. The RVA2 is the second incarnation of bespokely made awnings for the Basecamp caravan by Vango. The first being the Vango RVA1. I just want to touch on that briefly because it's well worth a discussion. We got an RVA1 included in the deal with this caravan when we bought it from the previous owners, and it's a cracking awning. It's 4 meters long. It more than doubles the usable space in the Basecamp 2, and I'd even say in the Basecamp 4 as well. It's extremely strong. Its strength comes from 1, its weight. It weighs 27 kilos, and 2 is it has 3 main air beams that run down its span front to back. So 2 on the flanks, 1 down the centre, and then it has supporting air beams in between those. And then the vestibules have air beams that are not part of the structure, but are staked out with the guidelines. It's very, very strong. I'll have no problem taking the RVA1 out in any weather to any location. The compromise with that awning is that it is very heavy to transport. It's heavy to handle. Also, it's bulky to get on the awning rail, and bulky, albeit relatively easy to pitch. So we only use that one on occasion. So for example, we went to Scotland last May with some friends. They came up in their motorhome, so there were 6 of us all together. We had some great Scottish weather, plenty of rain, and the awning was plenty big enough for the 6 of us to socialise in the evenings after being out adventuring. It's great for that.
For the reasons articulated, used Vango RVA1 awnings can be snapped up at a fraction of the RVA2 retail price, and in most circumstances the used price too. Depending on the intended use of the Basecamp caravan, a used RVA1 can be a serious contender, especially for tighter budgets.
So my attention started to turn to the RVA2. So the RVA2 is, as I mentioned, is the second incarnation of bespokely made awnings by Vango. It's 12 kilos lighter than the RVA1, around 15 kilos. It is a metre shorter at 3 metres, but it still gives great space for socialising, for dining in, and also for storage, all of that combined really. So about this time last year I started to look for one, and I found one used on the Swift Basecamp Official Owners Group Facebook page. So it's a good place to start. They do come up used frequently, I'd say, not regularly, occasionally. They come up occasionally, and we just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and we got a good one second hand. One of the benefits of the RVA2 is it will tolerate bad weather. We went back to Scotland in September last year, and I took the RVA2 with us, and we had torrential downpours, and the RVA2 tolerated that no problem at all. It did start to come through the material after prolonged downpours, but I have to say, from a waterproofing perspective, I was very impressed with it. The watch out, of course, is on the side where the vestibule comes in. There's a gap in the awning rail just by its design, and a certain direction of the rain, and the rain will trickle down that side, the side of the base camp that's on, which is unfortunate, but is a compromise of its design. Now, in terms of tolerating windy conditions, I have pitched it in windy conditions, and as I mentioned, it will tolerate it, but it is vitally dependent on it being correctly pitched. So the strength is within its complete structure. So you've got 2 air beams that run down each side that create the shape. You then have an air beam across the span at the back, and then you've got an air beam that goes across the span above the door, and then you've got guidelines that go out from the orange vestibule on the side. There's 3 on that side. You've then got guidelines on the other side, and then guidelines that go from the air beams rearwards. Now, they all have to be correctly in place for the awning to be strong. So where its weak point is, you'll be surprised to hear, is actually at the sort of where the air beams at the back curve up. That's its weak point. So if the guidelines that stake down from the back become loose and it's windy, you can get a collapse. Those air beams will fold in, and if it folds in, you risk getting a collapse, which has happened to me, and I'll come back to that point shortly. Outside of that, if you've got strong weather coming in on either side, providing it's correctly pitched, the awning can tolerate that. It's from the rear where it's weak. So when it comes to pitching it, it's important that the pegs are secure. So if you're pitching it in a pitch and you can easily pull the pegs out, and there's going to be bad weather, that is a risk to the awning. But if the pitch is a good hard standing or good grass pitch, and the stakes are securely in place and it's correctly pitched, the Vango RVA2 can be used all year round. So let me tell you about the storm damage I encountered and a £300 repair to the awning, which was rather expensive. So I took the RVA2 up to Ullswater in November last year. So I was going on a hiking trip with a good mate of mine from work, and the planets aligned. We got this week in, we were going up there, but there was a storm forecast to come through that week. Shouldn't expect anything less at that time of year. I thought this is a great week to test the RVA2 to see how it really handles bad weather. And there were a couple of sins that I committed. So the first sin was that I was in a rush to pitch the awning. I'd got up there ahead of my mate, and I wanted to get everything pitched so that we could get out on the trails. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There was only about 3 hours of daylight left, so I was rushing to get the first hike in. Mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 was when I staked down the guidelines, particularly round the rear, the pegs were coming out the ground easily, and I didn't twig at that point. So the rear of the awning wasn't secured where its weak point transpires to be. And then the third sin I committed was the beam that goes above the door. I didn't correctly put that in place. There's some velcro on each side and it securely fits, and I just popped it up and I didn't pay attention to the velcro. The next day we go off hiking round Ullswater Lake, and the weather really came in. I mean, it was torrential rains, torrential downpours, but we were sheltered from the strong southerly wind, being that we were walking by the lake. So when I got back to the awning, back to the caravan, I just found that the RVA2 had collapsed in on itself. All the pegs at the back had come up, including those important guidelines. It had collapsed in, and then it was full of water. It was like a swim pool. It was like I was going to get the fishing rods out. It was that full of water. And what had happened is that beam that I hadn't correctly installed at the top above the door, that fell out. I later found that under the caravan. And then whilst I was away from the awning with the wind, it just shook itself to bits, causing lots of damage on either side. And that was a very expensive repair.
The Vango RVA2 is worthy of the commanding retail price. The compromises articulated can be managed in return for a stylish, practical awning ideal for touring. Should the intended use be for 3-season adventures, the Vango RVA2 is with confidence the go-to awning. The value in a purchase of this size will be different for everybody. It simply is a case for matching individual needs with the awning. Whichever route an RVA2 is purchased, the user will no doubt be delighted with the product, as we are. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next adventure very soon.